Okay, welcome for a retreat for the people on the meditation and for the people on the video. And we are first of all recapping Samadhi, and we talked a bit about the things we're trying to develop in meditation are awareness and attention. And we do that by using a combination of focusing our mind on a meditation object. And the most common meditation object in the world that focus your mind on is your breath. Equally, your body is another great focus of meditation. So too is metta, so loving kindness. So you can actually use loving kindness to actually create that open feeling in yourself, but at the same time also use it as a meditation object. But we use the body and the breath mostly. When I did my long retreat in the Sakya tradition, I used a blue flower. So my thing was a blue flower, hence the name of my company. If anyone wanted to know where that came from. So I spent weeks and weeks and weeks just staring at a blue flower 12 hours a day. But it became a really good, strong meditation object after a while. But if we use our breath, we focus our mind on our breath, in, out, in, out, in, out. Now, we have to complement that with awareness. And the way we know that we've got awareness, in the beginning especially, is that when we become distracted, it's awareness which gives us that little aha that says, you've become distracted. So if you find yourself, you've been daydreaming for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, you know that your awareness is not very strong. And as you practice bringing the mind back, the awareness should get stronger and stronger, and the idea is with practice, it should only, when your mind wanders, it should come down to literally seconds. And then eventually your awareness is so strong that you start, even though you're concentrating on your breath, you get a feeling that a thought is starting to bubble up even before it's fully formed. And so you almost are able to guard yourself against losing the meditation object even before your object has gone off. Or secondly, you can get this feeling, you can actually be having the thoughts, but you know you're distracted. So you can be thinking breath, 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 and you know you've heard a sound and you probably think it's a kangaroo, and you know that you're thinking about the kangaroo, but you know that's a distraction, and you know that we say let it come, let it be, let it pass. You say, I'm not going to be too adverse to it because that actually causes more problems than it solves. So we just leave it there, even though our main focus is on the breath, and sure enough, eventually that thought leaves the awareness and we can stay on the breath. So that's what we're aiming for that's an intermediate part, but that's still quite a long way, is to be able to stay on the breath for 15, 20, 30 minutes at a time, and either know that distractions are about to happen or that they are happening but you're aware of them and you're not letting them drag you off into mind wandering. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I'm hoping that most of you will have been practicing that. So, yes, so again, a recap on dealing with distractions. In a way, meditation is all about dealing with distractions. If you've got no distractions, it's sort of very good, but you're sitting there and it's like you're not really doing any reps, exercise. It's actually the distractions which actually are your thing which makes you better. So I've got a waterfall of what to do. The first thing is, if a distraction comes, you try to ignore it. You just go, let it come, let it be, let it pass. Sometimes ignoring it is a little bit more difficult, so the next stage is to deliberately put it down. So sometimes the distraction is right there, and you're like, okay, I know that I've just thought about something I need to do, but I'm going to just put it down for now, and I'm going to promise you, mind, that I'll come back to it as soon as the meditation is finished, and we'll do it then. And so you need to sort of put it down, and then go back to your meditation object. If it's still persistent, then, and if particularly if it's negative, then we kind of need to work with it, and often it's good to work using metta, so using loving kindness. So it actually means taking your mind off the breath as the meditation object, placing it on the distraction, and doing some sort of internal prayers, metta, whatever, for the distraction until you're able to then let it go more fully. And then when you feel that it's starting to fade and it's not triggering you anymore, then you come back to the meditation object. Okay? So this is all going very, very fast, but the assumption is that you all are very familiar with this. The next, of course, is to actually deliberately confront it and have therapy and coaching. So as part of the mentoring program, once or twice a month we catch up and we actually have a life coaching session where we say, what problems are arising in your life and in your meditation practice, and can we work through them, as a life coach, as a counselor, and see if you can drop them out of the system that way. And then hopefully when you go back to the meditation, they've been resolved. And then the other way, the final way, is to use insight practices, which is what we're doing today. So even though we build up samadhi to allow us to have a mind which is sharp enough to have insight, nevertheless, the good thing about insight practices is even if you don't become awakened, still a lot of what we're going to be talking about are actual additional tools that you can use on distractions. So they will actually help your samadhi. So, metta helps samadhi and wisdom helps metta and samadhi helps wisdom and metta. So they all eventually help each other. So I call them the three foundations, because ultimately they're supporting each other. So it is good to do some samadhi practice, then some insight practice, then some metta practice, and come back and do more samadhi practice. Of those three, really, concentration meditation or samadhi practice is probably the one you would do well over 50% of the time, and then metta and insight a lot less of the time. In the book, Rob says do 80% samadhi and 20% insight. So that gives you an indication that the importance of samadhi. In other words, if you've got a really good concentration, you don't have to contemplate these insight practices before they have a very profound effect. It's almost instantaneous. Whereas if you haven't got much samadhi, you can think about these insight practices, and they don't really have much effect on you. Yeah. Good? Looked like you almost got a question there. No, good.
I was going to say, I think I've got 1,000 questions.
Yeah, right. Questions are good. All right, so that's sort of a recap on dealing with distractions. Now tomorrow morning we will do mostly a samadhi practice. So for the first half hour from 6 till 6:30 we'll just do a samadhi practice, and then in the second half an hour I'm going to do a talking practice. And in fact I'm going to get you to use a pen and paper, and so we'll go more into insight, but the first half hour will be just purely samadhi. So I want to talk about the dissatisfaction loop. So some of you may have read that. It's talked about in in The Mind Illuminated, in the introduction somewhere. And what happens is our mind, I'm sure you've been familiar with it. Once you get in a bad mood, you know, it makes you even in a worse mood, and then a worse mood, and then because things are going wrong, everything seems to go wrong. And not only that, you're not taking care of yourself, so then you spill water, and just everything seems to go wrong. And there is this kind of looping. You go down a rabbit hole and sort of get really stuck in anxiety. But there's also the reverse. There's also the pleasure loop, the satisfaction loop, satisfaction and harmony loop, which I'll talk about in a sec. So let's talk about the dissatisfaction. So in meditation, what we're meditating for is more peace. We're trying to get rid of distractions, okay? But of course, our mind jumps in and starts to wonder. And what does that cause? It causes dissatisfaction. Why? Because what we want is peace. And we've got, mind wandering. So, and what does dissatisfaction do? It creates more thinking. And it creates negativity and aversion. Yeah? And that aversion influences your mind. It actually influences your thoughts. So the state that you're in has an impact on the thoughts that you have. And so if you get into a dissatisfaction aversion loop, then the thoughts you have are more negative, and you start having these self-defeating thoughts. Oh, I'm never going to get this. I'm hopeless. You know, I've been caught in that loop lots of times. You know, want to give up, and then that creates more aversion, because then you think, this is useless, I might as well get up from the cushion. But no, I've promised, especially in the retreat, Peter Active hasn't rung the bell yet, so I have to stay here, and all I want to do, and that creates more dissatisfaction, and you're in this loop. Boom, 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 boom. And lots of stories. So we have to recognize that loop when it's happening and try, like anything, to try to get out of it. And it comes with acceptance. You know, one of the big things is just accepting things aren't going well, and accepting I'm in the dissatisfaction loop. You know, and that sort of acceptance of that starts to bring a bit of harmony, because you know, you're not fighting it, you're accepting it. Acceptance is a big part of the path. Acceptance is huge. And that can cut off that dissatisfaction loop. Now, with acceptance, you know, if you accept things just as they are, even if you kind of say, well, they're not perfect, but they are as they are, and I'm here, you know, so I might as well just try to make the best of it, and I just accept that things aren't very good. Satisfaction starts to come. And with satisfaction, the thoughts change. And you go, well, at least I'm in a beautiful place. You know, like if I'm going to be stuck sitting anywhere, at least I'm in a beautiful place. And so the satisfaction. So satisfaction brings joy. Joy brings calmness. Calmness brings positive thoughts. Positive thoughts brings less fabrication and less stories. And the less stories you have, the more peace you'll get, and then the more satisfaction you'll feel. So you can get caught into that one.
We're having this conversation on the way here.
Yeah, right. So it's good to identify the dissatisfaction loop and try and cut it off, and then if there is some sort of, and see if you can get yourself into that satisfaction loop by accepting and then trying to be satisfied with, you know, accepting. And yeah, a few little thoughts of gratitude is helpful. I'm grateful that I'm here. Not too many, just enough to bring a bit of joy, and then that joy should hopefully fire off the satisfaction loop. Now, the key here is that in the satisfaction loop, as you feel joy, peace arises, calmness arises. And with calmness, the thoughts tend to stop. Okay, so there's what we call less fabrication. Now, fabrication is, as we've talked about, fabrication of mental objects, and the worst of those is these stories, self-defeating stories. So if we can create less and less fabrication, then the attention settles down and the awareness comes to the fore. And so the awareness is starting to gain more and more power. Well, it's really just, it's there. You could say it's gaining more power, or you could just say that it's just coming to the fore more. And with that comes deeper ability of insight. So we're going beyond the thinking mind, because insight, the insight that we're trying to cultivate, really can't be achieved through the thinking mind. It's beyond the conceptual mind. And in all religions, you know, whether it's Christianity or Islam or whatever, Sufism or Judaism, you know, they talk about God as being incomprehensible. It's beyond mind. So this is a common theme across all religions and all traditions all across the world, is somehow you've got to transcend the mind to be able to access this deeper knowing. And whether you want to call it God or, you know, emptiness or the universe or the source or whatever, we need less fabrication. So less fabrication is the key, to insight, and meditation is really that. Meditation is less and less and less fabrication of mind. So you could say fabrication is meditation is less fabrication. Now, one of the other benefits of samadhi is that joy and happiness naturally arise from within, and calmness. And that can be very, very pleasurable and very, very relaxing. And that has the ability of sharpening the mind, and it also has the benefit of putting him into a state of joy, because when we start to contemplate insight, it can be very confronting. Okay, it can be very confronting. A lot of people have no problem with it, and they have a smooth ride. But then there are also a lot of people who are very confronted, and, you know, fear and difficult emotions can arise by starting to tap into these deeper insights. And so samadhi, being able to go into deeper samadhi, allows you to counteract that fear with a sense of calmness and joy and happiness. And especially when you see that even though the insights can be quite confronting, they deepen samadhi, and with samadhi becomes more joy, and so it allows you to kind of trust the process. Yeah, so that's one of the reasons why samadhi is important. All right. So I'll just quickly go over the process that we use for trying to develop a good meditation practice. What Chuladasa recommends for anyone who's beginning meditation, and that's for people who're sort of beginning meditation, but also anyone starting a meditation, as in the first 5 minutes, is a thing called the 4-step transition. Well, actually, even before that, he suggests to contemplate 6 preliminaries.
Six-step preparation.
Preparation, yeah, 6-step preparation. So I might take you through that, and there are things like, what is our motivation for wanting to meditate? Because it's motivation that's going to give our, drive. And, what is our goal for this meditation sit? So motivation is your overall meditation. What am I going to try and practice this sit? Am I going to do an insight meditation, or am I going to do a samadhi meditation, or whatever? And then thinking about potential obstacles that could come up. So if you know you've got a big issue at work, quite likely that's going to come up in your meditation session. So just be aware of that, so that you're ready to know what to do when that comes. Also obstacles and expectations of what you expect. Whether you've got hidden expectations, because if you expect to go into this great Zen-like, great sense of peace, then you're almost setting yourself up for failure, because when it doesn't happen, you go into the dissatisfaction loop. It's best to have no expectations. And then there's one more, posture at the end. Yeah, postures at the end. There's one more, and then also bodily posture. So that's a preparation.
Diligence.
Diligence, yeah. Diligence of, and I like diligence not only to think, right, I'm definitely going to sit here for 30 minutes and I'm going to just give it my best shot, but gratitude is also one that just helps lubricate everything, and I'll sort of bring that into the diligence step. Then we go on to the, this is going very, very quickly, as a reminder to some of you, is the 4-step transition. Now what we do is we sort of start with a wide scope of attention. So our attention is on everything. Now our awareness is on everything as well. So we're also in that first step establishing awareness through attention. So it's good to sort of, even keep your eyes open and be aware, what can you see, what can you hear, what can you feel, what can you smell, what can you taste. Yeah? So we're just kind of concentrating on everything at once, and then as we sort of move from the first step, we leave our awareness as open as possible. So ideally, your awareness should be aware of everything, even as you sharpen your attention. Now, with each of these steps, there's no rush to go from one to another. So you could spend the whole meditation session just being open to everything. And indeed, for beginners, that's what I recommend, is to spend, your whole, like a week, 2 weeks, just doing just that. Yeah? But in order to start reining in attention, we bring it in, and firstly we bring it into the body. So we actually, even though we can close our eyes, some people like to close their eyes, and that sort of blocks out the visual, and it can help with the concentration. But even if you keep your eyes open, even though you're looking out, the attention of your mind is really just going on bodily feelings. So can I feel my legs? Can I feel my back? And at that point, it's good to check bodily posture again. So, it's a good point to sort of check your bodily posture, because, there is an interaction between the body and the mind, and if the posture is good, the mind tends to be sharp but relaxed at the same time. And again, you can stay on the body for as long as you want. You can do sweeps of the body. You can start at the head and work down, shoulders, arms, relaxing the shoulders, relaxing the muscles, relaxing the torso, and do sort of a body sweep meditation. Or you can start, if you start feeling more relaxed, you can bring your mind just to a certain aspect of the body, which is the breathing. And the breath is what we call a body conditioner. So the breath actually conditions the body in the sense that if you breathe like this, which we've been doing for a month, you know, how does the body feel? Like it tenses up the body. Like that. So if you breathe very short, quick breaths, it's going to make the mind agitated and it's going to make the body agitated. So if you, while you're concentrating on the breath, if you can allow it to just really soften and perhaps lengthen, for most people, they'll find that tends to calm the body down. So you can sort of stay with the awareness on the body and the attention on the breath. And the trick to that, I find, is rather than, when you take a slightly longer breath, rather than breathing in more, like that, I actually find it better to concentrate on the out breath. So let the out breath keep breathing out. Until it naturally stops, and then the in-breath happens naturally. So again, you can play with the breath. Again, I would normally advise to play with the breath for weeks at a time, you know, until you can feel that you know the type of breath which really has the best effect on calming the body formation. So you can condition the body already by just practicing breathing meditation. And in addition to that, it's a smaller object of meditation. And so it does take a little bit more effort to sustain attention on that smaller object, because the mind tends to get bored more easily, and it's a bit more contracted, and so it will want to, the mind will want to wander. Now, if it does wander, you might decide to go back to the whole body, or even the whole of everything. So you can expand your scope and see if that will help you kind of rein in the attention a little bit more. If you're going well, then you go to one point, which we generally say is just on the inside of the nose. You feel the breath on the inside of the nose. And that, for most people, is the meditation object that they'll use pretty much for the rest of their life. Doesn't have to be. You could quite easily meditate on a cup, or you could meditate on, you can still meditate on the breath, but on the diaphragm is a common place, or, you know, just one point in the lungs going in and out, etc. Okay, did I miss anything? Deb, right? Right, so that is a whirlwind description of entering into meditation. Now, once you're in meditation, whether you're on the body or the breath or the point of the nose, you're going to try to keep your attention there. But it's not going to stay. It's going to leave. You're going to be distracted. And this is where the important thing is. Now we're training awareness. We're trying to train a awareness which knows what is going on with everything all the time, so that when the mind is distracted, we know it's being distracted. And this is where insight's going to come from. And so as we get distracted, we notice we're being distracted. And here is a big, big tip. It's a thing that most meditators, including myself, do wrong. Is what happens when we find that we're that we're distracted, is we feel bad about it, because that's, again, it's the dissatisfaction loop. It's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to keep our mind on the breath. So while our mind is on the breath, we're going, I'm a winner. No, I'm doing so well. I'm a winner. And then as soon as we realize, oh my gosh, I've just spent 3 or 4 minutes thinking about lunch, or when Monique goes, Kathy are going to get here, or whatever, then we go, oh, I'm supposed to be on the breath, I'm a loser, you know, and then the dissatisfaction, and you're into the dissatisfaction loop. So you need to counteract that. So the big tip is, for a beginner meditator, is when you notice that you're off the breath, that is a time to celebrate. Why? Because your awareness has just suddenly picked up on it's come to the fore. It said, hey, by the way, you're off the breath. This is me awareness. I'm just letting you know. And so that's a time for celebration because it's a little mini wake up. Yeah? You've been off daydreaming. Distraction is really daydreaming. And suddenly you wake up and you realize, oh, I made a commitment to myself at the beginning of the practice to be on the breath. Hooray! Well done! You know, I've had a moment of awareness. And that, according to Culadasa, will strengthen the awareness. Part of your brain will go, oh, that was good. I'll do that again. You know, it's that, you know, good vibes endorphin hit. And all creatures, whether it be jellyfish or kangaroos and human beings, they do, if you get positive feedback, you'll do more of it. So you're tricking your brain into doing more of this awareness thing. And we just do that over and over and over and over again. And gradually, even, you know, we get to the point where we're like, awareness is coming in even before we've lost the mind correctly. And the celebrations get more subtle. It's like, well done, you know. At first you're like, yay, brilliant. And then later it's like, yep, good. And you're back. But it's still, subtly, it's still the same thing. And with a good dose of exception, you'll get satisfaction. Satisfaction will bring calmness. And then once you get into that satisfaction harmony loop, then the meditation should start to become more effortless. All right. Yeah. Any questions? Alrighty. So some other ideas that you can do to help with awareness, which sort of more stage 3, stage 4 practices, is to, you know, actually label. There's a very, very big tradition called the Mahasi tradition, which is all about labeling what you're aware of at any one moment. And so, yeah, you can say, I'm thinking, you know, distracted thought. What I like, and I suggest, it comes from Shinzen Young, a teacher, is with the labels, you don't want it too involved. If you say, oh, I got distracted by that kangaroo over there, bouncing from there to there, and I noticed that it's got a joey, the label becomes a story. So you actually want to go, I got distracted by seeing something. So you say see out. You know, thinking, I'm thinking of something. Hear the crickets. Well, you won't say eating crickets, you just go hear, I'm hearing something. So that sort of means you're labeling, but you're not getting into the story. So that's what we learn, and that's what we've been practicing.
And what did you call that?
Well, it's a technique created by a teacher called Shinzen Young. And there's a book of his over there, and it's just a technique that I quite like. It's called labeling. It's called labeling. Yeah. And it was probably the most famous proponent is a Burmese teacher. I forgot his name, but Mahasi. And so it's the Mahasi tradition do this listening and noting. All right. Well, that's a recap on everything that we've learned over a year. So, crash course on what we've learned over a year, and that's what we'll be doing in the first half hour tomorrow. Alright, so we'll stop the video. Can you press stop to this? Go around the other side.